Mr. Speaker, I would have caught cold if you had asked me to speak before now. Onofiok Akpan Luke is the name, and by the grace of God, I hold the mandate of the people of Etinan, Nsatibum, Nsatubium, Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity you've given to me as one of the early callers to make my stand and that of my federal constituency known as it concerns the proposals that was put before us by His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yesterday, we are aware that the President fulfilled his constitutional responsibility as enshrined in Section 81, Sub 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. And Mr. Speaker, I want to use the opportunity to commend the President for timeously bringing those proposals before the legislature so that we can act in time, and then it would therefore lead to us returning to the budget cycle of January to December so that the dividends of democracy can be delivered to Nigerians because they are awaiting that. Mr. Speaker, we are not losing sight of the magic year that we used to hear while we were growing up, the year 2020, and what Nigeria was to become in the year 2020. And my own contribution is going to be along those lines, Mr. Speaker. We promised better infrastructure in the year 2020. We promised sustainable growth in the year 2020. We promised job creation in the year 2020. And we thank God that Mr. President has captioned his budget, the budget of sustained growth and job creation, which is actually what Nigerians are waiting for to see in the year 2020 and waiting for to see materialized in their life and in their well-being. Mr. Speaker, in laying these proposals, Mr. President has made some fiscal measures that would lead to the development of this country. But howbeit, some are plausible, and howbeit, personally, my federal constituency have reservations on some. But I would first go to the ones that are plausible, that which Mr. President captured in his speech yesterday before the legislature. Mr. Speaker, of importance to us is the increase in the non-debt recurrent expenditure for the 2020 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, the explanation given in Mr. President's speech is that this would cater for the minimum wage increase, an increase in the remuneration and welfare of members of the police force and our armed forces. We want to agree, if we must agree, the morale of our men of security agencies fighting security, whether in Northeast, whether in South-South, in the Niger Delta, their morale has been low because of low pay. And we commend the effort of Mr. President in making sure that they are going to increase their remuneration to take care of their welfare so that we can not only help check the issue of the low morals of our men of armed forces, we would equally check issue of corruption so that we don't have members of the armed forces running away with 400 million naira like we have heard, which this House is currently investigating. Mr. Speaker, another plausible measure put forward by Mr. President is the increase in the statutory transfer to the National Human Rights Commission so that they can be able to discharge their responsibility to Nigerians. Mr. Speaker, there have been cases of human rights abuses in this country.
Honorable Leki, approach the Chief Whip.
And what we keep hearing is that the Human Rights Commission is incapacitated because of lack of funds to be able to face these challenges. We thank God that Mr. President, in his wisdom, in the proposal presented before us, has sought for the increase in statutory transfer to the National Human Rights Commission so that they can be able to discharge their responsibility. Mr. Speaker, sir, one other measure put forward by Mr. President is a provision in the Social Investment Program. This is a welcome development because while we are putting on the infrastructure, we need to do the stomach infrastructure. That is key. And it is only through the social investment program that this can be done for Nigerians. But howbeit, we want to appeal that those who are saddled with the responsibility of discharging this onerous task should do that to the benefit of Nigerians, and that it should spread to all Nigerians, not to the members of household or people who are privileged to be in position of authority. So we commend that effort of Mr. President in the increase in the provision of the social investment program. Mr. Speaker, sir, yesterday, the President made mention of bills that he will send to this House that would unlock the potentials of the oil and gas industry. And that is a welcome development. And we believe that with that, with the initiative today coming from the executive, we know that the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, which will reform the oil and gas sector in this country, is going to have a smooth passage and is going to have the immediate assent of the President to become the law of the land, so that we can take the benefit of the oil and gas sector in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, the provision for infrastructure development is very key, and we appreciate that by the President. We have infrastructure deficit in the area of power, in the area of transportation, especially on road and rail. We have infrastructure deficit in the area of ports. Mr. Speaker, we commend the effort of Mr. President in trying to make investment, in trying to make provisions for this area. And that is why my people from my state and from my federal constituency has asked me to support this budget of Mr. President, because with this investment infrastructure development, the University of Uyo would be a beneficiary. The University of Uyo Teaching Hospital that would deliver health care to the people of Akwa Ibom would be a beneficiary. The College of Education of Ansat would be a beneficiary. The State Polytechnic Ikorosura would be a beneficiary. The Federal Polytechnic Nukana would be a beneficiary. That is why my people have asked me to support the provisions of this budget as presented by Mr. President. Then the Ibom Seaport, which is very key to unlock the development around that area and decongest other ports, which Mr. President would give license and support for development, would be a beneficiary of this investment, of this allocation, and this provision that has been made in the 2020 proposals by Mr. President. Mr. Speaker, sir, the area of Niger Delta, Mr. Speaker, the provision is welcome and we accept it. Accepting it again, sir, that we are not waiting for crisis to happen before we now go to begin to talk about palliatives. We thank Mr. President for the sum in the amnesty program. We thank Mr. President too, and we appreciate and support Mr. President in the increase in the allocation to the Niger Delta Development Commission under the statutory transfer. But we would ask for more, because Mr. President has indicated in his speech that we have asked an increase in our foreign reserve to $41 billion. And he has given reasons that we have not had disrupted, interrupted, the production line has not been interrupted by either insecurity or militant activity. We appreciate that, and we want that to continue. Mr. Speaker, sir, we all are affected by the crisis in Northeast, and so we support the provision of this budget to cope the challenges in Northeast. Mr. Speaker, the only reservation my people have asked me to have about this budget is the fact that the sum allocated for debt servicing, which is 2.4 trillion, is above the sum allocated for capital expenditure, which is about 2.1 trillion. So my people have asked me to say that if there's any possibility that we can do a rejig and do a balancing to make sure that the capital investment, money in capital expenditure, is far above money for debt servicing. And we begin to look inward, just like we've done with VAT, so that, just like we've done with VAT, and we look to...
Honorable Leke, be brief. Honorable Leke, be brief.
That we need to look inward to seize avenues that we can raise finances. Mr. Speaker, sir, we quite agree that there is need for increase in VAT. But my people have asked me that for us to be able to have that, we must have commensurate infrastructure development so that Nigerians can go about their activities, can go about their businesses, can go about their lifestyle that would put food on their table, take care of their education, take care of their health care. That is the only way the increase in VAT would be justified, if we have that VAT or the return on VAT being put on infrastructure development. Mr. Speaker, with these few remarks of mine and that single reservation, I would support the second reading of this Appropriation Bill 2020. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.